And here we go. So good morning and welcome. Welcome to June is Safety Month with Environmental Health and Safety. This morning we have a presentation from our workers' compensation team on employee injuries, how to prevent them, and what to do if they occur. Just a few housekeeping reminders. All of our participants are able to send a chat to our presenters. At the end, we will have a Q&A session, which will open up microphones access so that you can have open dialogue with our team and be able to answer or ask your questions. If you do have questions throughout, you're welcome to just pop them in the chat and I'll make sure that we get to those when we get to the Q&A portion, and that we will be sharing some resources as we go through. So, but without any further ado, I'm going to turn it over to our Workers' Compensation and Disability Management team. Ariel, take it away.
Okay, well, introductions are in short order. So my name is Ariel Kluig. I currently manage the Workers' Compensation and Disability Management programs here at UCR. Go ahead, Ed.
Oh, good morning. Ed Marshall, work with Ariel in Workers' Comp. My primary role is as our campus WorkStrong coordinator. And we'll get into, I know WorkStrong probably isn't very familiar to everybody, so we'll get into that a little bit later on.
Thanks, Ed. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us on a Friday morning to talk about a rather dry topic as workers' compensation. So the program or the presentation today is a bit misnomered because it's really on, it's a how-to deal with injuries at the workplace. And we'll talk about everybody today. We'll talk about volunteers, student volunteers, graduate students, and then actual employees. So it'll go pretty fast, but if you have any questions at the end, please feel free to shoot them up in the chat and we'll get to each of those questions when we can. This presentation will also be made available through Heather. So if you want a copy, please do reach out to EH&S Training and they'll get you one. So let me get to the first slide here. So we're going to talk about a few things today. Who's covered by workers' compensation? Again, it's employees versus students. How to report workplace injuries. I'll give a walkthrough through our website and what to do. We'll talk about labor code a little bit and our legal requirements to report injuries. And then we'll talk about a popular topic, like where to send people who need medical treatment. Like where do I send my employees? Where do I send students? What happens if I get a medical note? What do I do next? And we'll talk about modified work a little bit. And we'll talk about the dreaded UCR cost allocation system. Some of you may be familiar with that, but I'll go in detail what that entails. And then we'll go over questions at the end. Okay. So I want to first start by saying, okay, there's I guess a basic understanding of workers' compensation. It really only covers employees, right? So if you're in UC Path or you earn a paycheck from UCR, then workers' comp will cover you for any injuries sustained while in the course and scope, or if the injury arose from employment. So if you're doing your job, sprain your ankle, covered by UCR. Medical bills, wage replacement, things of that nature, that's all coming out of UCR. Now, we've modified the program a little bit to cover more than that because, again, managers always have this question, well, what if my graduate student wasn't doing research at the time and they were actually TAing for a class? Well, okay. So we cover graduate students. We'll just make that a full-blown thing. We also cover volunteers, right? I know they don't earn a paycheck from us, but we found it beneficial for volunteers. If they do volunteer for us, the least we can do is pay for the medical treatment if they get hurt on our property. This even includes student volunteers. Okay. Now, the one thing I will say, if you use volunteers in your units, have those volunteers registered in the database, because again, it helps us when you report the claim in or report the incident in, it helps us to trigger that thought, oh, they're covered, versus, well, I don't know if they're covered or not, if we're able to pay for the treatment. So make sure they're registered in the database so we find out quickly who's a volunteer, who's not, and away we go. Now, what's generally not covered are students, right? One, they're not in UC Path, they're not earning a paycheck. They're just here to learn. It's not employment technically. And then visitors. So mom and dad comes to visit junior at the dorm, they get hurt. It gets covered by a different insurance, but not workers' compensation because it didn't arise out of employment. Okay. I want to introduce you to a friend of ours, which is the Workers' Comp website. We'll have everything you need to get the process underway. here you can quickly Google it. I would just throw into the search engine, you see our workers' compensation, and it'll bring you to our website here. I'll show you a live version of it right now. So our website looks like this. It'll have you know, thumbnails up top and then 2 big boxes on the bottom, which you can click and it'll bring you to whatever you need to look at. For reporting injuries, though, it will be self-contained. Everything is self-contained using 2 boxes, and we'll show you how to use it in a second. Okay, so let me get back to presentation. Okay. Again, you can use the website, you can access it from your phone, a tablet, computer, whatnot. If you forget where to find it, feel free to contact us here at EH&S. Again, this presentation will be delivered to you if you want one, or if you want a copy of one, so it'll have that information for you as well. Now, when you use the website, again, we always tell managers if it's a serious enough injury, and they say, hey, you know, I just lost a finger, I'm bleeding out of my ears, I can't see, you know, if it's serious something, call 911. You know, don't mess with the stuff. Call 911 if it's a life-threatening injury, and life-threatening is pretty subjective. It could be a serious injury or somebody's not breathing. Just call 911. That's fine. We'll deal with the rest later. We'll deal with the website. We'll deal with reporting later. But yeah, call 911. If it's not an emergency, and I usually tell managers, hey, look, if it's something you can't fix with a first aid kit or a Band-Aid, and I'm talking like those first aid kits you get from Costco that's only like covers like 40 people and it's just got a bunch of Band-Aids and gauze pads. If you can't fix it with that, then go ahead and use the website to report an injury. Okay. Again, it doesn't matter if it's a volunteer, graduate student, go ahead and use our website. So you can use interchangeably these 2 boxes here on the website. If you click on blue, it'll start to ask you a bunch of questions as to the nature of injury. If you click gold, that means you're just the manager reporting on behalf of whoever you want to file the incident for. So if it's a student, whatnot, you can go ahead and click that, and it will get you where you need to go. Heather, are we taking questions right now? I see a raised hand.
We sure can. Kristen, you can speak now.
Hi, Ariel.
Hi, Kirsten.
Really excited about this session. So I have 2 questions. So what if you are the supervisor or manager and you don't know if there's a work-related injury, but like there might be. So I'm wearing a lawyer hat here, which I really shouldn't because I'm only trained as a lawyer. I don't act as one, right? But I mean, there are situations we know, right, where you know, an employee claims a work-related injury and it's determined not to be that. So I'm like, that language is giving me a little bit of pause because it almost sounds like the manager has now like said, I know that it is a workplace-related injury. So I'm wondering if maybe it should be modified to be more like, my employee may have a workplace-related injury, but that is not, I'm sorry for asking that, or it wasn't even a question. My other one is more of a question. So, you know, somebody, you know, slips or is injured, you know, those things can be just somewhat obvious, but, you know, there are also like psychological injuries. And I would love, hopefully, if over the course of this, we could hear a little bit more like that, right? Like somebody reporting that should this also be used if somebody's saying that they're experiencing stress, you know, in the workplace to the point where they may need, you know, professional treatment. I think that's a little bit not as like what most of us think of this kind of thing for, right? But maybe that is what it's for. So thank you. I'll be quiet.
No, thank you, Kirsten. Those are very good points. So noted, we may have to change the language of that. So yeah, because work-related injury is a very precise legal meaning, or has a precise legal meaning in the labor code. So yeah, point taken. So we will have to look at that and possibly change that. Now, for managers, the rule of thumb is if somebody gets hurt, no matter what it is, whether it's work-related or not, or if you think it's fraudulent, I saw him slip and fall on the camera on purpose or fall down the stairs on purpose, doesn't matter. I would just say if there's an injury involved at the workplace, use this process, right? we have an army of people behind this process. So we have lawyers, we have TPAs, who have adjusters who will ask all your questions, whether this was work related or not, and then they'll actually sign checks to pay for medical treatment if valid. So once the information's in, it starts to funnel it towards, my team, of course, but also to this army of attorneys, adjusters, and extraneous TPAs and vendors, investigation vendors, whatever the UC hires to handle workers' comp. So think of this as, a funnel. You want to get information in and kind of done with it. And then the process will take care of itself in the end, right? So again, if it's a 911 injury, no problem. Call 911 first, then we'll deal with the reporting later. But if it's something more than, hey, I can't fix with a Band-Aid, my student says they're freaking out and they're having a nervous breakdown. So what do I do? You can still report. Remember, get this information to us, and then we can actually direct it where it needs to go, right? But this is a good landing spot for any manager who deals with injuries, mental or physical, in the workplace. A bit about the labor code section, because it comes in, it applies directly to reporting. Now, 5401 of labor code says within 1 working day of receiving notice or knowledge of injury, meaning that your employee says, hey, I got hurt at work. Okay. And if that treatment, if it results in treatment beyond first aid, then we have to give them a claim form. That's what all the law says. So that's why we want you to report this in, because it's all contained in the website as to our responsibility under the labor code. So person says they're hurt. Okay. I don't know if it arose out of employment or if it was during the course of employment. I don't know that, but I'm going to report it anyway and let somebody else figure it out. And the system will have a claim form for you to give to the employee, or one will be mailed to them within the 24 hours. So again, that's one of the responsibilities we take care of on the website. And then there's this 132A section of the labor code that talks about retaliation. So this is in the form of, you know what, I think they're faking it, so I'm not gonna report the injury, right? Or hey, if you get hurt, I'm gonna have to write you up because you got hurt. So that it covers those types of actions, right? So our philosophy always is, to avoid liability under this extra code section, which talks about retaliation. Just report the injury. Report the injury. It's pretty neutral. It goes into our system. We figure out if it's work related or not. Our TPA does what they do. Our lawyers do what they do, and it happens in the back. So your responsibility is over, pretty much, for reporting if it's just done through the website. So just know I did throw in the $10,000 penalty that a court can assign to an individual violating this rule. Note it's an intentional malfeasance under the law, so usually insurance doesn't cover this, meaning our workers' comp insurance may not cover if it's been alleged that you or any other manager violated this code section, so it comes out of pocket sometimes. Have I seen it happen? Yeah, in my experience with the UC for about 12 years, I've seen it happen a couple times. But we were able to defend it because, again, it wasn't the fact that they didn't report it or intentionally didn't report it. It was reported in the wrong place. So save yourself the grief, report the injury, and then let us take care of the rest. This is just kind of a snapshot of what happens when you click the blue square. It'll take you to a submenu and it'll give you 3 options to how to report an injury. One is electronic reporting, which is the easiest. You can do this on your phone, tablet, computer. Once you click here, it'll bring you to a different submenu where you use our internal incident reporting system, which informs us right away of something happening, so we can come and investigate what happened. And then it'll take you to the university's software platform called Employee's First Report of Injury, or EFR. And then the employee or you as the manager will report all the incident or the entire incident through that system. Okay. You can also fill out an accident report, right? So if these are guys that were at ag ops, let's just say they're out in the field and they don't have access to a computer or they have signal on their cell phone. Well, you can print these out. You can click this, it'll print out an accident form and keep it in your back pocket. Post it up on a corkboard in the workspace. So if somebody gets hurt, fill that out, fax it to us or get it to us somehow, or take a picture and email it to us or text us. We'll get it that way as well. Or you can call our hotline, right? Option 3 is the hotline. It works 24/7. So for guys who work on the weekend at 3 in the morning, they can call this if they get hurt. And they can self-report through here. It's just going to be operator, just asks all the same questions that we require on the EFR and our own internal electronic reporting tool. Easy enough. So again, 3 ways to do it. It just depends on your operation. It will also give you a link to the DWC one, so it'll ask you, right? Report and click the link, and you can print it out there. Again, if they don't print one out, or you don't print one out, no worries. We will get a claim form over to the employee or faculty that's injured. This is what it looks like when you hit the manager one or the gold box. Same thing. It's just more condensed. It's the same 3 options to go to in terms of reporting or injury, and it'll just give you several links for information. It'll give you the DWC1 form, the claim form. Does it like 3 times. So depending on what option you pick, it will lead you to that claim form. Where to go for treatment? So I get this question quite a bit. Like, hey, my graduate student was doing research at the time they got hurt. So they weren't actually an employee at the time there. Okay, so I get that. And usually there's that line of thinking of, hey, do I use workers' compensation or do I not use workers' compensation? I would say the rule of thumb is if you don't know, go ahead and send them to our workers' comp vendor, Kaiser on the Job. Go ahead and send them there. That's fine. If you don't know if they were working on, rule of thumb is report the injury, get them over to Kaiser. The Kaiser location's on Magnolia. It's about 8.5 miles away from campus, so it's pretty convenient. There's after hours. I think it's a hospital, so it runs 24 hours a day. I know that they put like hours, but yeah, you can go to the urgent care there, get medications and whatnot because they do have a pharmacy. You don't need an appointment, just send people over there. If they don't have a car, you can Uber them over there. Don't worry, the cost will be reimbursed to you via our plan. Go to medical building. Oops, let me move this. I can't see that. Medical office building 1, which is in the back, 4th floor, room 408. Just check in and say, hey, I'm from UCR and I got hurt. And they will take care of everything after that. Probably have to fill up some forms and things of that nature. But yeah, when in doubt, send people over to Kaiser and Job if they need medical treatment. Doesn't matter. If it's first aid and you think, yeah, I can't fix it, it's a bad aid. Yeah, they may need stitches. You never know. Or if they're having a nervous breakdown, go and send them there. We can refer them out to psychiatric treatment if needed. Now, if they're students, we know they're students, and then they know they're on our property or they're in our workspace. There's a lot of questions that, where do I send them? Do they have like UC SHIP, which is the UC form of insurance for medical injuries and stuff like that? Or do they have mom and dad's, like, are they on mom and dad's Kaiser or Anthem Blue Cross? So I get all those questions. You don't have to ask them. If you're a student, the first place you should send them always is to the Student Health Center, and they'll figure it out. So yeah, don't waste too much time in figuring out, hey, what kind of insurance do you have? No, just send them to Student Health Center and they ask all those questions. We do have an app on our space. I'm sorry, it's not as big, but we do have an app for the Student Health Center, which is pretty self-contained. It shows location, operating hours, if you have upcoming appointments or not, or if you have vaccinations due and stuff like that. Even if you went to UC SHIP, and some students have the university sponsored insurance for medical care, that even tells you, like, hey, I know you're insured by this, but hey, start at Student Health Services first. There's even handouts they give you on the website, and it says the same thing: go to Student Health Services first. Now, if you send them to Kaiser, are you in the wrong? No. Again, what'll happen is Kaiser will figure it out and say, oh, they're not an employee. They'll just send a bill where it needs to go, and if they have UC SHIP, then UC SHIP pays for the medical bills issued by Kaiser. So there's no wrong way to send people, but again, general rule of thumb is if they're an employee, and we know they're employees, or graduate student or volunteer, we send them to Kaiser on the Job. Students go to Student Health. Okay. If you don't know, if it's like a borderline call, then yeah, send them to Kaiser on the job. We can take care of it from there. Also wanted to talk about a little bit, it's like what happens when they come back, right? Because now employees don't get injured and they just stay at the hospital or the clinic forever and ever. They will come back and they will bring documentation with them as to how they're supposed to return to work. Now, again, our website has resources for managers. Share that real quick. It will have like transitional work, basically guidelines, and then of course disability management. But it will have items you can download and have at your desk if you want to laminate something like this. It'll tell you exactly what to do, right? In case a person comes back and they have a note and it says no pushing or pulling or lifting objects more than 25 pounds. Right? So what do I do with that from there? There's other procedures we'll talk about in a second, but as managers, what I want to impart today is what do I do on the day of injury, right? And then we'll deal with what do we have to do when they come back. So first thing is, if the person is a 9 to 5er, let's just say, and they get hurt at 10 o'clock and they have to go to the clinic at 10:30, doesn't matter. Don't clock them out for breaks or just pay them a full day. Okay. Yeah, clock them out for breaks and lunch and stuff like that, so they don't make like 10 hours of pay that day, but pay them a full day. And that's done for a certain specific legal reason, for disability pay. It makes it easier to figure out. So pay them a full day. And then the next day, if they don't show back up to work, it could be leave without pay, or it could be a workers' comp pay. But again, we'll figure that out the next day. Usually, I would say 99 times out of 100, a person will come back to work with a no, right? But remember, even if they worked like 2 hours that day, and they got hurt and they had to go to the clinic the rest of the day, and then they had to go home after that, pay them a full day. What you want to do as well is when they bring you a note, you want to capture when the next medical visit will be. It usually will say, if it's from Kaiser or any other doctor, it'll say next office visit or NOV. Make sure you mark that down, right? Again, there's a lot of employees who say, yeah, I had a next appointment, but I didn't tell my boss and they didn't let me go. And so we had to cancel the appointment and then set it for next month. And then the treatment took longer. So best practice for this is, I always tell managers, make sure you keep track of their appointments, because they're going to have to go back to get treated. And the objective of bringing people back to work is so they recover at work, and they still are productive, and they usually recover faster. So the appointments will also include like regular clinic visits. That's like the hour they spend with the doctor, but then they can be going for an MRI or a CT scan or an EMG. They could be going for anything like that, or they can go to physical therapy. Now, normally when we talk to employees, we encourage them to schedule these before and after work, but just depends on the clinic or the location. They may not have open slots to accommodate employees that have all these things. So make sure that that we're aware of those. We're going to those. Do I have to pay for that time off? No. A person will, if they're going to a doctor's appointment, they clock out for it, right? If they're going to an MRI, they clock out for it. Clock back in when they come back, right? If they're going to physical therapy, do I have to? No. Well, I'll pay for the physical therapy bill, but their time at work is off the clock. Okay. They can use sick or vacation depending on department rules. Usually it's sick that they can use to fill in those gaps in pay, which is up to them. If they don't have it, then yeah, it's up to you guys if you want to approve vacation for that gap. So if they're gone for 4 hours, yeah, you can use vacation. Now, and this practice is pretty critical because, you know, some people, not all people, but some employees will just tend to take the whole day at the doctor, right? No, thinking that, oh, I didn't clock out, so I think I'll get paid for the full day, and I'll just, you know, I'll get something to eat first, and I'll go to the appointment, I'll get something to eat after that, and I'll take in a movie, and then come back to work and say, yeah, I'm done for the day, right? But if they're clocked out, usually that puts a little more accountability on employees to hurry up at their appointment and come right back, right? Because we have work for you and stuff like that. So, and if they're using their sick and vacation accruals, even better, They tend to stick to those appointment schedules. Heather, I see 3 questions in the chat. Do we want to take them now, or should we parking lot those guys? I think we're
Let's
ahead.
take a look. Are they mine?
Yeah.
I think I've been adding resources as we go through. So I think those are mine. Again,
Oh.
if you have questions as we go, you can raise your hand or pop them in the chat.
Okay.
But I think maybe this is a good time to pause if anybody has questions about this process or the resources, links that have been shared. Okay,
Yeah,
keep
a
going.
bit of caffeine this morning, so I am talking fast. I apologize if I am. All right, so let's put a hypothetical. So what do you have an employee named Johnny, gets hurt on the job. Department sends John to KOJ and he issues these work restrictions on a work restriction note. No push pull over 3 pounds. No lift push pull over 3 pounds, and John must take a 20-minute break every hour. What else do you have to do? Right. So for a situation like this, I usually coach managers in saying, yeah, don't do anything yet. Don't say a no, don't say a yes. You know, there's other things we have to consider in terms of what to do with the employee. I mean, I may be union stuff because there's certain union rules about breaks. There's reasonable accommodation that we have to look at. There's temporary accommodation we have to look at under our own policy, and things of that nature. So in this case, I know everybody's looking at, oh, John must take 20-minute breaks every hour. I mean, that's times 8. That's like 160 minutes of breaks, right? Including if they're an employee, that's a representative employee, let's just say. I mean, union contract only says 2 15s and a lunch. So what do I do with these other 20-minute breaks? Well, you know, again, if we the workers' comp group always consults with HR, and the answer would be well, we don't charge for those 20-minute breaks, or meaning they clock out for those 20-minute breaks. That's called also intermittent leave under FMLA, which is a little more complex. And those extra 20-minute breaks fall under that rubric that will cause a leave without pay every 20 minutes every hour. So what if they're a salaried employee? No problem. FMLA covers that as well. Again, these are more complex issues that we get into. So don't make a rash decision just yet to determine what to do with the employee. What I would say is, what do you have to do from there? Well, when you issue modified work, seek our help, right? Email the doctor's note to our team, Kathy or Jessica, at these email addresses, and we'll guide you as to what to do next, right? There's a contract of modified work we want to make sure we get signed and filled out. There could be HR issues or union issues that we have to deal with as well, to make sure the accommodation is appropriate, make sure pay is appropriate, and things of that nature. So it just depends. Each case is different, but just know that you have experts on the other end who will walk you right through it. Pretty easy to do. So when you get that note from your employee, feel free to get it to us right away, and then they'll give you instructions on what to do next. Okay. Now, part of our modified work program or return to work program includes WorkStrong. And at this point, I'll turn it over to Ed to describe what the program is.
Yeah, hi. So the WorkStrong program, you know, a big part of workers' comp, it's a system-wide program. So every campus has a version of WorkStrong. And the ultimate goal of WorkStrong, I mean, you may want to look at it as a work hardening program. I like to look at it as an overall ongoing rehab program for injured employees. So basically, you know, as part of the transitional work program, you know, ideally, you know, we want our employees here on campus, right? They, you know, like Ariel alluded to, our employees are more motivated, are held a little more accountable if we keep them here on campus rather than sending them home to recuperate. So WorkStrong, like I said, is health improvement, you know, for our qualifying, typically orthopedic type injuries. backs, muscle sprains, strains, things like that. And we'll typically work in conjunction. If an employee is working with a physical therapist, we'll work in conjunction with that therapist, or with some guidance from the doctors as far as how can we accelerate the healing process. So a couple of the more popular services that we're able to offer under WorkStrong is nutritional counseling. So we do have access to some of our dietitians over at UCLA that if an employee is looking to make some nutritional change, dietary changes, lifestyle changes, we can put them in contact with the dietitian. Probably the most popular is the physical fitness aspect, where I'll work with an employee, or if need be, I'll put them in contact with a personal trainer over at the rec center. And there, we typically work on, like I said, any rehab for, their current injury, if that's something that we need to do, because, work comp will typically, approve small blocks of therapy. So I'll try to improve on that and do a little extra work for the actual injury. But the great thing about WorkStrong is we're not limited to just the injury. Like if somebody messed up a shoulder, okay, I'm not limited to working with the shoulder. We can look at the full body, which is great, because in almost 20 years of working with injured employees, one of the things that I've found is flexibility, or lack thereof, is a huge component in work-related injuries. And that tends to be where I kind of focus on, is improving flexibility and core strength along with that. And if we can work on that, then we have seen a lot of success throughout the program system-wide, that our employees are getting back to work faster. And we're also reducing, and this is key to everybody, we're reducing the chance of re-injury in the future. So that's, that was one of the guiding principles of WorkStrong in its development. But, another key aspect to it is the morale boost that our employees get by having, kind of a one-on-one personal trainer that's working with them to help them recover and help them improve their fitness levels. And history tells me that, our employees that are in the work comp system at times feel a little frustrated at the system. And, it's not always as fast, and things don't always happen as quickly as we would like it to happen. So I think having somebody, like me or one of the personal trainers working with them really is a morale booster for them, and improves the the timing and bringing them back to the fold, and bringing them back to working full time, just because I think they feel that somebody cares. Not that we don't all care, but sometimes the system makes it seem like we don't. So that's one of the benefits that I've seen in it. So again, WorkStrong, we want to reduce the chance of re-injuries, improve morale, improve overall health of our employees. And because, we're keeping the employees here in transitional duty and keeping them on campus, we like to have the employees working with us in the WorkStrong program during that regular work day. It just really helps with our compliance, right? It's a lot easier, especially for our folks that, travel some distance to and from work. If we can get them participating in the program during the day, and not having to stay after work or come in before their shift, it's really going to go a long ways in compliance. So, my ask to all of our managers if you have an employee that comes to you about WorkStrong and mentions, hey, Ed wants to work with me, right after startup, and we typically keep the sessions at about an hour, give or take a little bit of time, travel time from your department. But please, please, please work with them. We want to do everything we can to make sure they're able to get to these sessions. So again, we can accelerate their rehabilitation, get them back into, as close to full duty as we can. So I'll just kind of leave it at that. And if you guys have any questions, by all means, feel free to contact myself or Ariel. Just, if you feel the need to, verify that, the employee is in fact coming to see us, more than happy to do that.
Thanks, Ed. Thanks, Ed. So to Ed's points of our modified work program, so it's designed to do two things. One, we're trying to heal the employee post-injury as fast as possible so your operation can get back to normal. And two, we wanted to ensure that by making a more comprehensive program to get what we need, right? So again, if you have Johnny who gets hurt at work and then they have these restrictions and they really can't do anything at work because of the restrictions. I mean, if he's let's just say a K5 employee and he can't lift more than 3 pounds, there's not much he can do. He can be a door greeter, that's about it. But again, the program's not designed so he's just sitting at a door 8 hours a day making a regular wage, right? Part of his recovery process will not be only being exposed to aerobic versus anaerobic conditions, meaning he's active and healing, versus sitting at home and watching Oprah, whatever people watch it in the daytimes nowadays. He's coming to work, he's active, and now he's enrolled in this program to help him recover and get back to full duty faster. Helps us also with the docs, right? Because doctors, oftentimes in my experience, they write must do home exercises on the work status report, and whoever does those home exercises, nobody ever does, right? So again, this program is a nice addition to our return to work program because again, it's designed to keep people aerobic as much as possible. And it'll tell the doctor, hey, look, there is aerobic as much as possible. So I don't know why we're still seeing these work restrictions. Usually we've been seeing reductions in modified duty assignments by 2 months, which is huge for departments a lot of times, because usually if you have personnel modified, you're down a person. It's not like you can just get a temp to cover them, right? So yeah, it's usually a good idea to bring people back, help them heal, get them healed back and get back to normal. The cost allocation program for UCR. Now this is unique for us because again, I think only UCLA does something like this, but a little differently, and probably just UCLA. So what a cost allocation program is for injury claims, it's a cost sharing program. So under the labor code, which is 5402, it says an employer is responsible for $10,000 of hospital bills until the claim is accepted or denied. Meaning that because of that 10,000, then UCR says, well, okay, we'll split the 10,000, 5,000 for the department, and then 5,000 for the actual campus, right? Just to offset that that liability. Now, again, we've looked at this, and not all injuries are the same, right? So if somebody cuts their finger on paper and doesn't need stitches, but we send them to the clinic anyway. You can act on certain things to get that $5,000 charge down. One, report the injury within 48 hours, right? Use our system, have the employee go through our website and report it, or report it for them. Sending people to Kaiser on the job, right? Don't send them to their own doctor unless they're a student and they can go to their own doctor or student health. But if you're sending people to Kaiser on the job where they can get addressed right away, and if you issue modified work, that will reduce your 5,000 by 1,500, which you're left 3,500, and we'll pick up the rest. Now we're looking at other ways to offset these charges because in some cases it's kind of not fair that we have to charge so much. But again, the law is so high in California in terms of what we have to pay for medical costs at the first day. And I'll just leave it at that. But we're looking at other offsets like department-led investigations. If you investigate your injury and fill out our accident report, then we can offset the cost by $750, right? If you have a safety committee that's within EH&S guidelines, and we're working on that program now. If you have a safety committee to participate in things like workplace activities, wellness, trainings, monthly training, OSHA tailgates and stuff like that, then we can also give you another 1,000 off. So the goal is to give enough incentives to offset the entire 5,000. But we're working on it. So probably next year, hopefully next fiscal year, we'll have something in place where you can do extra for your department, so you're not looking at a $5,000 charge every time. I think that was it. Oop, I didn't put Ed's stuff there. Sorry, Ed. I usually put contact. We'll go ahead and open up to questions. I am actually 3 minutes early, so my goal was to be 45 minutes in. And so now we can open up to questions about the program.
Excellent. So we do have a question, and Kathy, I'll read the question, but I'll unmute you as well if you would like to follow up. But Kathy asks, can you briefly address how to handle when an employee has a designated physician form filed and wants to go to their own doctors?
Okay. So pre-designation form is listed in the labor code. Now, I believe HR does describe them in their orientation, so they sometimes get filled out. But in my 12 years at the UC, I've only seen like 2 filled out. And the reason is if your main doctor is just say like a general practitioner or like a pediatrics doctor, I'll just say, they're not going to know how to do workers' comp. And lots of times regular doctors who don't do workers' comp decline to do workers' comp. But in the case you have one, and that form was filled out before the injury, then they get to go to that doctor. Just let us know. Just let us know, because one of my guys will probably ask, "Hey, what happened? They didn't go to KOJ, so I don't have a work status note." Yeah, they can go. Again, that's a risk they take, and we try to tell people it's like, yeah, it's not worth it to have like your foot doctor see you for your spinal injury, right? It doesn't usually work, and the reports that they usually send aren't compliant with labor code, and so they get kicked out a lot of times. So you might as well go to Kaiser. But anyway, yeah, that's what you do. If they have something like that on file, they'll let you know. Then go ahead and send them to. If you didn't know, this is interesting more. So just say they filled out in secret and they just have it. They have it in their files, and then they show it to you on the day of. Even if you set them to Kaiser, no problem. No problem. The Kaiser visit will get paid for, and then we'll just transfer the care from Kaiser to their personal physician. So even if you didn't know and they told you later, and then we already said, that's no problem. Send them to Kaiser as a default. But if you know that we have to send them somewhere else because of the pre-designation, I should say, yeah, go ahead and send them there. And then make sure we know. Good question.
Do we have any other questions regarding the process? Okay, but if you're still thinking, go ahead and pop them in the chat. What I was going to do, I'm going to steal your screen, Ariel,
Yep.
and share just a few resources that are related to how to also prevent injuries. And so I know oftentimes, hopefully, and thank you for all the information, but the questions that always come up is the process, right? What do we do when someone gets hurt? So obviously, Ariel made lots of mention of our workers' compensation website. I popped a lot of these resources in the chat. So hopefully you're able to open them and bookmark them. But workers' compensation is part of environmental health and safety. So if you haven't visited or are not as familiar with environmental health and safety, this is our main website, which you can also access all of our other divisions and departments through as well. We offer a lot of really great resources related to preventing injuries, illnesses, creating safe workplaces and practices, everything from programs, written programs, compliance programs, but also lots of in-person, online training opportunities, as well as training at a glance tailgates and services. So if you haven't visited our site, encourage you to do so. Two kind of main areas that pop out that might be of interest to folks joining today is in our safety area. So our general safety, industrial hygiene, and occupational safety team have a lot of resources related to how to perform work safely at the university. So each of these are programs. I know some of you on the call are familiar with them. And then for those of you who perhaps are in, oh, I didn't put on here. Are not working, say, in our facility services, but are also wanting to prevent office injuries, which are also pretty high on our reporting and our ergonomics. If you didn't know, ergonomics has moved over to environmental health and safety. We have a new campus ergonomist. And so you can find out all the information about our ergonomics program, meet Jansen, and request self-assessments, on-site assessments. And in addition to that, a matching funds program for equipment. We have a try before you buy program as well. So if that is of interest to you to help prevent sitting unsafely, right? And working safely in front of your computer or in an office environment, that is a resource as well. And I'll go ahead and pop this link in the chat if you're interested. And before I move on, June is Safety Month. So thank you so much for joining us today on this webinar. But if you are interested, there are other events that we are hosting throughout the month. Next week, we have our Boot Scoot, which is a work boot try-on event. So if you or any of your colleagues wear work boots as a part of their job, please come out. We're going to have 4 or 5 different vendors that will have samples to try on. We are working on with UC Office of the President to pilot a program here at UCR to kind of identify the best boots for the job to incorporate into our slip resistant shoe program. So spread the word. And earlier this week, we did do some additional training with asbestos. And our occupational health folks did some CPR first aid and AED in partnership with the SRC. So we've got a lot going on in addition to in 2 weeks, our summer research safety orientation. And we know it's starting to heat up, and this didn't fit into our June schedule, but if heat illness prevention is of interest to you, we will be hosting a heat illness webinar in the beginning of July for those that might be interested. So check back. I'll pop all these links in the chat. And if there are any other questions, I'm checking the chat now. Please feel free to let us know, or I can also unmute anyone if you want to stay and ask Ariel and Ed any additional questions. But if there are no additional questions, I want to thank all of you for joining us today. Thank you, Ariel. Thank you, Ed, for the information. We hope this was helpful. This recording will be available to view on our Safety Month website. And so you should get notified when it's available for viewing. And we look forward to working with you in the future. So thanks so much. And we'll stay online for a few minutes if anybody wants to hang back and ask some specific questions.